Hi, Carrington. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, really well.
Yeah,
I know.
good.
I hope everybody's keeping safe.
Yeah, same old over here. I think we're about to open up in a few weeks in the UK. We've got the next tier coming in, so gyms and hairdressers I think will be open, which is good because I'm about due for one at the moment. I can't really stay with my fringe.
Yeah, my blonde roots are quite shocking right now, so I'm looking forward to getting to the hairdresser.
That's why.
Yeah, I'm pretty overdue. I feel like I'm pretty overdue for a haircut as well, so I totally understand. But yeah, should we go ahead and get started?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it. All right, I'm just going to share my screen. Just bear with me a sec.
All right. So, hi, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, where we will be taking a deep dive into the future of loungewear, activewear, streetwear, and sleepwear, the categories that have defined retailers' assortments throughout the coronavirus pandemic. I'm delighted to introduce my colleagues who will be discussing what's next for the pandemic hero categories. So today we have Bethany, a retail strategist who works on the customer success team, and Kayla, our expert market analyst who is behind some of the most incredible reports and blogs that we publish on Edited. Introduce myself. My name is Carrington, and I'm another retail strategist on the customer success team. Bethany and I have been working firsthand with retailers to support them with navigating themselves throughout the unprecedented circumstances of the pandemic. Together, our role is to really empower retailers to embrace our data to enhance their commercial and strategic decisions making throughout these unprecedented times. So for those who are not so familiar with Edited, we are a market intelligence platform where retailers can gain access to market data at the simple touch of a button. Having access to this real-time data helps retailers and brands trade faster as it lets them look at the entire global market, whether that is down to colors, trends, patterns, price points, discounts, or even communications.
Okay, great. We're now going to take you through some recent new features that we offer here at Edited. And the first one of those being the Edited mobile app, which is available for all of our Edited customers. Our mobile app puts world-class retail insights into the palm of your hand. You can see the entire back catalogue of our amazing retail and runway reports. You don't need to miss a thing as you check in on our latest reports whilst on the commute into work or even whilst having your morning coffee. The second feature is our edited COVID-19 retail dashboard, which tracks key metrics that highlight the retail industry's response to the variation in demand caused by the worldwide pandemic. We are live tracking the most heavily affected countries for key metrics like newness, discounting, and the top performing categories. And finally, we have the Sustainability Edit, which is an amazing annual report focused on uncovering what sustainable fashion looks like today and in years to come.
Okay, thank you so much, guys, for a great introduction and taking us through some of Edited's resources. Introducing you to the agenda for today's presentation, we've put our expertise together, combined with some quick wins and insights from Edited's market intelligence platforms to really help guide retailers on how they can evolve these categories to optimize sales beyond the pandemic. We'll start with exploring the root of comfort, which is a factor that underpins all of these categories and its role within fashion trends. We will then take a deep dive into our hero categories, how they are performing as key regions trade in a second lockdown, look at where they're headed next based on the retail landscape, historical data from Edited's platform, as well as influences from the most recent runway circuit. Following this, we will examine how the success of these comfort-based trends have affected denim, answering a question we think all retailers want to know right now: is the skinny jean finally over? And then lastly, as retailers move from the new normal and enter what is being dubbed as the next normal, we will take a look at the impact of some emerging themes and micro trends that are bubbling up that will serve as more of an antidote to comfort dressing. All right, so let's get started. So part of my role is talking to the media about trends impacting retailers. And something that I hear a lot of is this notion that the pandemic really gave birth to loungewear and comfort dressing as a fashion trend. You guys might disagree, but I think in my opinion, comfort dressing in fashion is really nothing new. And I think all of the categories that we're talking about today were trending in their own right. However, they have just been accelerated in terms of growth because of the pandemic and because of lockdown. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I think it's true that loungewear was experiencing an upwards trend even before the pandemic. However, the pandemic has definitely caused a surge in this area. I think it was really interesting actually, because I think there was an element of exclusivity given to even the most core loungewear pieces over the pandemic. I remember trying to get a pair of black cycling shorts in my size and couldn't find any stock online anywhere due to the fact that factories were closed and retailers weren't able to trade into this style very easily, even though this was what everyone was wearing on their influencer pages and social media. So yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that one, Kales.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, with the cycling shorts, because it kind of feeds into activewear and athleisure, which, as we know, has been a buzzword in fashion for, well over 5 years. We experienced at its peak back in 2015 and 16 that denim, which we'll discuss later, as a category really started to suffer, and then sneakers became the footwear of choice, regardless of your outfit, and people started wearing activewear, even if they weren't going to the gym. So there were already these shifts towards casualization, and it has been represented quite clearly on the runway. With these images here, you can see this is just from the past 4 years alone, but all of these, these looks silhouette-wise are still very relevant with fashion trends today. And, I think it'd be fair to say they wouldn't be too out of place with retailers' current assortments right now. And if we keep going back, we would find even more examples. Shameless plug for Edited's runway coverage. We have all the major runway shows from up until 2008. And then I guess going hand in hand with comfort is functionality, which is why in a similar vein, utility influences have continued to be successful in fashion over the years, with consumers looking for really practical pieces with ergonomic details. Additionally, utility and functionality are a core aspect within streetwear, which is again, not a new concept, but grew to the popularity we know today following the e-com boom, opening up labels to the masses and of course it trickling upwards into the luxury market. Then even though we are now all working from home, and we will be for the foreseeable future, a lot of companies before the pandemic were already becoming more flexible in terms of remote work, as their employees really started to begin prioritizing self-care and striving for a more healthy work-life balance. We also saw events starting to become more casual. Formal suiting and tailoring became a bit phased out on the runway. We started to see cycling shorts or sneakers paired with unstructured suits, knitwear favored over blazers, and high-end designers start to incorporate performance fabrics. And then retailers really started to respond to these shifts. This time last year, Marks and Spencer announced that it will be reducing its tailoring offer due to a 7% decline in sales. So further evidence of this movement towards comfort and functionality and casualization that was already in motion before the events of 2020.
Yeah, I think that's to that point, Cows. This is super interesting because something that became very clear during the peak of the pandemic was how retailers were really pivoting on their communication strategies to come up with ways on how to promote their work attire. So we saw a lot of retailers creating work from home edits like matches, aiding or adding this to their navigation on their site, just to sort of help guide customers through this weird time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have the data to back up this decline and really paint a clearer picture as to what's happening with more formal categories right now. So this graph here is from Edited's history tool, where we can track performance metrics over time. And what we're seeing here is new arrivals of suiting each month online across the US and UK market. So traditionally, January is a key time for retailers to phase in new suits before people head back to work. And then what we'll see is a more concentrated drop in July ahead of summer weddings, as well as November and December ahead of that party season. What we did see though for 2020 is, come January, before we all experienced the first outbreak, was investment in suiting for the back to work period, as you can see on the chart, clearly wasn't as strong as in 2019. So again, retailers already pulling back on this category at scale. We then saw arrivals plummet during February, March, when factories in China shuttered, deliveries were compromised. And then over the past 3 months, as we start to kind of, over the past 3 months, arrivals have yet to pick up, as retailers are obviously wary of investing in this category as people are spending more time at home. So what we can see is new arrivals are down 47% year on year over the past 3 months. And the number of products selling out of majority SKUs online are also down by 24% year on year. We're also seeing on average retailers are aggressively discounting the products that they do have. The average markdown attached to suiting right now is at 60% versus 40%, which was advertised last year. So all of these metrics which come from Edited are indicators of a category that is underperforming and is struggling. I think it would be fair to say it's a current pain point for anyone, working in retail, managing this particular area. Beth, Carrington, I know you guys work with a number of retailers globally. Would you be able to share some insight for our listeners into how some retailers can evolve more formal products, during a time when no one's going anywhere? Are there any success stories at all, or is it all just really doom and gloom for workwear and for the suit right now?
I think it's really hard to say whether it's complete doom or gloom for the suit, but what I would say is that we've seen a lot of retailers looking to Edited insights to support with the optimization of their formal assortment. So one key thing retailers have been looking into is how to add more casualization into their dress shirt ranges, as the need for having a smart shirt that looks business appropriate for Zoom calls, whilst being comfortable and breathable, has become even more important to have in your wardrobe. Another question that we've been receiving a lot from retailer concerns the future of formal accessories, with specific reference to the bag. So will consumers lean more heavily now towards buying purses and card holders as people are not going out as much, and or carrying around so many items, even cash? So that's been a real big topic that people have been looking into across our retailer base, but also the future of belts. So that's another interesting topic for those accessories teams as they delve into understanding whether a belt is needed, or whether they needed so much option breadth within their belt assortment, as people are wearing sweatpants with their shirts on their Zoom calls and not needing to hold their trousers up so much. So yeah, this is where Edited really comes into its own, to be able to see those insights and understand how your competitors are strategizing in this area to inform your own strategies.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Bethany, the pandemic has really forced retailers to rethink the concept of occasion wear as a whole. People were more likely to be having socially distant picnics in the summer, or, having brunch outside in the fall than going to a wedding or wearing a suit to work. So, I think retailers have really had to rethink the sorts of fabrics and even the overall functionality of the silhouettes that they're bringing into the market when it comes to the workwear and suiting market.
Yeah, and to that point, we've even seen like a real big change again in communication strategies on this point as well. So whereas last year, during the peak suiting time, you were seeing real highlights of new in products on retailers' homepages and newsletters, the communication now is heavily steered towards promotions and sale. So we're really seeing retailers completely pivot on their planned communication strategies to help push their stock and create sales opportunities.
Yeah, again, tying in with the heavy discounts that are applied to suiting and more promotions to try and get them moving as well. Yeah, both are really, really strong points, guys. Moving now completely away from suiting and tailoring into our comfort hero categories. So as we previously discussed, comfort and functionality was already a huge trend as consumer lifestyles shifted even before the pandemic. While fashion as a whole is really challenging right now, it's these categories and themes that have been hailed by retailers as their new bread and butter and are crucial to be investing in right now in order to survive. So I'm not going to spend this presentation talking about, how successful these categories have been. We all know how well sweatpants performed over lockdown. Instead, we're going to be sharing real-time data into their current performance and where to take these categories next. And Carrington and Beth are here to share insights on how brands and retailers are really leveraging these trends to come out on top next year and beyond. So I'm going to kick off with a category that certainly needs no introduction. With consumers indoors and prioritizing comfort dressing, loungewear has truly come into its own and evolved as the hero category for retailers and the undisputed uniform of 2020. These graphs here show Edited's assortment chart. It's categories at a very top level, and it's so valuable to see where there is actually opportunity within a certain category. What we're seeing here is men's loungewear in stock across the US and UK market over the past 3 months on the left-hand side pie, versus on the right, what's sold out of the majority of SKUs within that time frame. So really getting an understanding of the loungewear styles working well, where there's opportunity to invest going forward, and where there is saturation within the market and therefore an opportunity to pull back. What we're seeing is really not surprising. T-shirts are the top invested and top selling item for loungewear over this time period. But what we can see is this style makes up 64% of stocked products versus 56% of sellouts. So it is overinvested and supply is starting to overwhelm demand. So retailers, when planning for future loungewear drops, can look into other styles to invest in, such as hoodies and sweatpants, which are seeing an uptick in sellouts versus in stock. So again, this type of information is so valuable as it can be applied to any type of any category and any trend within any time period. So retailers can really have their finger on the pulse of how a particular trend or product is evolving.
Yeah, I think what was really interesting here is that we really saw t-shirt investments and replenishments rise during the pandemic, where other categories did not. So retailers really traded into this area to support their inventory levels, as it's a short lead time product area, but also they used it to inject newness into their range where they couldn't in other categories. So we could really be seeing the effect of that now, where there's that clear overstocking issue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's the same if we go and move to the next slide and we examine women's wear, where we've broken down. It's obviously this similar story. T-shirts have saturated the market. We're seeing sweatpants and sweatshirts continue to perform as well. What's really interesting is if we take a look at hoodies and cardigans, they both make up the same percentage of loungewear sellouts, but we can see that cardigans haven't been as heavily invested in as hoodies.
Yeah, and kind of that's really interesting, I think, Kayla, because something that we're talking about later on is this idea of sweatpant fatigue. Following wearing sweatpants and PJ bottoms for so long, consumers will be wanting to wear something else, more dressy, something that they can wear on a call with their boss, and then hop to the store and run some errands. So here we can see that there is an option to do so in cardigans. They've seen the same success as hoodies with smaller investment, and they still fall under the comfort and loungewear umbrella as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that perfectly leads on into this slide where, and the next few slides where we're discussing where loungewear is actually going. It's certainly showing no signs of slowing down, especially with, regions well into or new regions entering their second lockdown. We've also seen a sheer volume of cozy knits and matching sets on the runway. So it's a trend that, luxury designers have put investment in for future seasons. But certainly to your point, Carrington, there is that risk of sweatpant fatigue and loungewear fatigue. So we can expect to see retailers, shift away from that into more elevated loungewear, products that can be worn both indoors and outdoors, that also border on work leisure, that look good, but still have that comfort element at the core. And here are some of the examples of how retailers are starting to elevate their loungewear buys to carry them through to this next normal and really keep their customer interested. So as we said, this trend isn't going anywhere, but we are at that stage where now, for wearing sweatpants for so long, consumers are starting to ask, what else is there? So trends to note for future loungewear investments include luxurious materials, Y2K influences. So we've seen the velour tracksuit have a bit of a resurgence. Turtlenecks for men, which also blur that line within a streetwear aesthetic. And then again, these kind of small details like embellished buttons or exaggerated collars, which can be applied, to your cardigans or to your sweatshirts, to update them and give them a bit more value. So they become something that consumers can be excited to throw on in the morning, to work from home, but still have that minimal effort, which is what's made loungewear so successful. Taking a closer look now at activewear and athleisure, So we've discussed that this is a category that has been extremely successful for some time, and it has been propelled to new heights with this rise in home workouts over lockdown, and it will continue to boom as we approach that new year, new me period where traditionally we see activewear sales spike. Demand is soaring so high that UK retailers actually reported a struggle to secure fall orders, due to factories closing across Asia to contain the virus. And this sparked news of an impending sportswear shortage, which is a mouthful to say. So additionally, across the US and UK combined, we've seen 26% fewer products online versus last year. And as we can see in this chart, sellout is continuing to rise. Over the past 3 months, performance wear has seen a 93% increase in majority SKU sellouts, while lifestyle and more athleisure products are up 109%. So obviously all indications of a very healthy and very strong category. I'd be really curious to know, I imagine this kind of puts retailers in a bit of a tricky position. Obviously a lot of them are struggling with inventory right now of things that didn't sell, during store closures, retailers applying significant markdowns to try and move through stock. But then we have a category here that everybody wants, and there might not be enough. Beth, Carrington, what can you suggest for retailers who want to cater to this overwhelming demand, but don't have the stock or can't get back into the stock?
Yeah, so we've actually seen a lot of retailers creating like new e-commerce strategies where they can add specific sport edits to their websites, to their landing pages. Lots of brands, for example, were adding in yoga edits or working out from home edits and hiking edits, which allows for easier navigation of the website. It enhances the customer experience, and it also directs them in the right way to buy the right product, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It also allows retailers in the same breath to rework their own assortment. So, for example, they could add more well-stocked items or essential ranges into these edits to, again, clear through some of those stocks. So, for example, your basic t-shirt or a graphic tee alongside those leggings. That's a key thing I've seen.
Definitely. And, I think there's been this kind of graying line between activewear and loungewear even before the pandemic, before COVID-19. So there's an opportunity here for retailers, I think, to really focus in on functionality when it comes to like the edits that they create. So, calling attention to thumb holes in outerwear designed for running, or flowy fabrics for those products that might be designed for yoga. And I think to Bethany's point, this will really aid in navigation on websites and protect those stock levels overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could surely help shift some products that, may be struggling a bit time if they're reworked and maybe given a bit more attention, showing other uses they have that work in with this performing trend. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. Taking a look now at what is working for activewear, starting with menswear, goes without saying sneakers are, of course, the top invested product and the top selling. Hoodies stand out here as a core investment, but we're seeing higher demand for jackets than is what is being stocked. So this shows an opportunity for investment in outerwear in active assortments to cater to this increased interest in getting outdoors, after we've all spent so much time at home. We're also seeing a lower percentage of polo shirts and shorts sell out compared to what is in stock. This is to be expected with the temperature dropping. However, shorts are still outselling leggings for men. And they have been successful throughout the year with this boom in running, which we can expect to see continue as social distancing activities and exercise becomes, the new norm. So for women's wear, again, sneakers, top stocked and top selling category. In contrast to menswear, leggings have actually seen a huge surge and are favored over shorts for bottoms categories. This is again reflective of, this home workout boom and, huge interest in yoga and self-care, as you guys pointed out. So this is a style that definitely goes hand in hand there. And again, like menswear, this demand for outerwear within activewear, jackets are making up 9% of product in stock, yet are 13% of sellout. So that's highlighting a key opportunity for investment right there. So I think it's really important to monitor activewear's next move, especially as there's so much demand for this category, as we've said, and it's really starting to reach critical mass. So retailers are going to want to look at how they can cut through the noise. We've talked about the outdoors becoming almost the ultimate getaway, as people are so eager to spend time away from their homes as safely as possible. And this fuels interest in social distancing activities, as we touched on before, running, cycling, hiking, etc. There's also opportunity for greater inclusivity. I think this goes without saying and really should be applied to all categories and trends. The current consumer doesn't respond well to exclusion, and retailers should be focusing on servicing consumers at all stages of their lives. And reality is that bodies do change. I read this really crazy stat that the average woman experiences 31 size changes during her adult life, while the average man experiences 24. Which is just, that's just crazy to me. Nike's maternity range has come forward as like a great example. It's designed for women pre and postpartum, which totally makes sense. You don't want to compromise your style and your wardrobe for these fluctuations, especially when there's such a focus on exercise and staying active. Consumers will want something that evolves and grows with them. So speaking of Nike, obviously being a major player within this field, there are also these emerging cult labels that shouldn't be counted out. A lot of them are pioneering sustainable practices from the get-go. They're absolutely killing it with social media marketing and gaining a loyal legion of customers and setting trends in their own right. We've seen brands like Girlfriend Collective, Year of Ours, which is a female-founded activewear brand, and Tala really starting to blow up and emerging as kind of the ones to watch in this space. They're just ones I can think from the top of my head, but there's so many. Do you guys have any to add that you think activewear retailers should be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, I saw one actually recently which interested me, Ernest Leoty, which is more of a couture activewear brand. Really like sort of highlighting the Parisian feel and culture of clothes, making it kind of even more easy for you to wear your activewear when running around and doing other errands, or just even to events now, because that's obviously how we're seeing activewear perform. So yeah, that's a really interesting one for me, how they've really up-spec'd that activewear range within their assortment too.
Yeah, we love anywhere to wear activewear, any excuse to wear it.
Yeah.
And finally, material innovations is, of course, synonymous with activewear. We want our workout clothes to work harder, keep us tucked in, keep us dry. Now we're seeing there's this additional demand for antibacterial technology, which, of course, isn't antimicrobial, so it won't protect you from coronavirus, but will still play a huge role with hygiene, of course, front of mind, especially as gyms start to reopen.
Yeah, and kind of to that point, Kayla, I wonder if there is any opportunity for mask within the activewear segment, kind of popping off of like the microbial technology advancements that you've seen too.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a great point. Masks are obviously, a lifestyle accessory now, and consumers will be wanting more than one to wear for different purposes. So it certainly makes sense, to have one designed for sport. I think this is something that Under Armour are doing really well with right now. They've successfully launched masks that are breathable and that they wick moisture. And it's something that non-active wear retailers can take cues from as well, especially as there's huge demand for this particular category right now. And then along with everyone wearing masks, it has created this whole new set of problems. Maskne and skin problems from wearing masks are now very much, a thing. And we're also seeing, reports of single-use masks washing up on beaches around the world. So there's definitely opportunity here for, I think, better quality, reusable face masks with the same technology applied for apparel. And I definitely think activewear is the category that is leading the way in terms of innovation.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that leads us nicely into the upcoming trends to invest in for activewear. So we're seeing a bit of a mix in terms of color hues between neons and neutrals. Obviously neons following Beyonce's recent Ivy Park collection. Then riffing off loungewear's success, seamless styles, with that comfort element are continuing to perform well. Sleeveless and cut-off hoodies are one to watch and a great way to really update your classic and best-selling styles for the warmer months. And then we're seeing space dyeing, which gives yarn this multicolored effect, really resonating within the activewear space. And it satisfies that DIY craze we saw during the first lockdown with everybody tie-dyeing everything because they saw it on TikTok. Feels like so long ago now. Moving on to streetwear as the next section we're going to tackle. Sorry, I keep moving my fringe. I desperately need a haircut, much like everybody else. So at the end of 2019, Virgil Abloh, the founder of Off-White and artistic director of Louis Vuitton menswear, said, in the 2020s, streetwear's time will be up. How many more t-shirts can we own? How many more hoodies? How many more sneakers? And the pandemic hit. And so he rephrased it, saying it had a 50-50 chance. We've popped in this chart here from Google Trends showing that Google searches globally for streetwear has remained high. And then over the past few slides, we've presented hard data showing that t-shirts, hoodies, and sneakers are in fact continuing to sell out. With that evidence, what do you guys think about the future of streetwear?
Yeah. Well, I mean, no disrespect to Virgil Abloh, I think, but I'm not sure if we'll ever necessarily see the death of streetwear, as much as we'll see like the evolution and the democratization of it over the years. I think we'll always see new cult brands entering the market, as well as some of our favorite brands kind of evolving and growing up. I think we've seen it in the past with brands like Obey, that went from these very cult underground brand to something that's a bit bigger, and I think we're even starting to see it now with brands like Supreme, and their acquisition by VF. So I think that just kind of points to the evidence that streetwear will just kind of continue to evolve throughout all of our lifetimes.
Yeah, I think that's such a great way to describe it, the democratization of streetwear, and especially with Supreme is such a great example because, we mentioned before the influence that streetwear has on luxury, and streetwear could really have been bought out by, a huge luxury conglomerate, but they were bought out by VF, so they're really kind of, we can expect to see them honing in on their skatewear roots, and really, retain I guess an accessible price point, which was so important for their consumer base, which is made up of a lot of Gen Z consumers.
Definitely.
Yeah. Also I think kind of going beyond hype labels and drop cultures and celebrity endorsements, streetwear is really rooted in a rich cultural history that has been shaped to what we know now by Black artists and designers. And despite previous commentary that it has hit its saturation point, it really has been so important in 2020 and will continue as this year has been, as we know, a catalyst for people standing up against social, political, and environmental injustices, of which streetwear has become the uniform for. And it's the younger generations, as we said, who are so invested in streetwear trends and culture, who are also driving this change. So, as you said, Carrington, it will continue to evolve with them. I'm curious to know, there are so many trends that are synonymous with streetwear. Should brands be emulating these trends, do you think, if they don't have that social activism at their core?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's entirely possible for brands to emulate those trends, but I think if we've learned anything from this year, it's that consumers are much more conscious of where their clothes come from, and the values that the brands that they shop, what they stand for. So it isn't really something that I think you can fake in terms of, social activism or being socially conscious. It really has to be in your DNA, and you have to really be about it. So, I think if that's something that you're actually trying to achieve, it's not something that you can fool consumers into believing that, you actually stand for, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So what is next for streetwear? We mentioned brands like Supreme obviously having an insane resale amount, combined with this stigma of secondhand fashion evolving and sustainability becoming a priority, this is an area that will continue to thrive. ThreadUp has reported the secondhand market is set to hit 64 billion within the next 5 years. And, you know, completely agree with what you said, Carrington. From 2020, we have learned that, you know, retailers cannot afford to sit on the sidelines in terms of social issues. You know, they really need to go beyond a one-off performative post and stand up and take accountability, put in place an action plan on how they're going to support minorities, support climate change, and help really create a better future for their workers and consumers. You know, again, this year's election saw a huge voter turnout, showing more Americans getting involved with political issues, and streetwear brands were really at the forefront of encouraging consumers to vote by, you know, closing stores early or releasing merchandise. So they're going to be the ones who will be demanding accountability and really continuing to fight for change. You know, additionally, with today's youth and Gen Z being so ingrained with streetwear and fashion, similar to outwear, it's going to be these new cult brands that will continue to emerge and continue to pave the way. You know, Carrington, do you have any suggestions of brands that we should really be keeping our eye on at the moment?
Yeah, I think two that kind of come to mind for me are a brand called Aim Leon Dore. They're kind of an up and coming streetwear brand that's been around since 2014. And then Cactus Flea Market as well. You know, they've done a lot of merch for a few artists, and they've kind of created a really big presence, I think, over the last couple of years as well. And I think kind of a big reason for their kind of the reason why they're kind of floating to the top, I think, is a few things. But I think most notably, the two that I would say are, you know, the fact that they've been embraced by some of like the tastemakers in society. So, you know, people like Pharrell, people who are, you know, kind of the coolest people that we know. And then I think the other part too is, you know, they've kind of had these collaborations with some really big footwear brands. You know, Aim Leon Dore just released a shoe with New Balance recently, that you can see on sites like StockX now going for, you know, double or even, you know, triple the actual sale price. So, you know, I think, you know, those combinations have really allowed these brands to kind of boom and become some of the streetwear brands to watch as of late.
Yeah, I think on the point of collaborations will certainly still be play such a huge role in terms of streetwear and driving the trends that we're going to see in the future as well.
Really.
So trends to note going forward, obviously utility and comfort will remain at the fore. We're starting to see an investment in plaid shackets, as well as graphic knits, deconstructed garments as well. There's still so much sporting influences within streetwear, such as rugby shirts, jerseys, varsity jackets, and so on. You know, and as live sporting events start to, you know, start up again, and people can go to games, this will only continue to grow. You know, loungewear, of course, will remain prominent, and that is, you know, ties into what you said, Carrington, about how there's a graying area between all of these categories, and we can really start to see that these hero categories all, you know, influence one another, and in some areas do have that overlap.
Definitely.
The next category to come under our microscope is one that is in hot demand right now in terms of gifting as we enter the festive season. So sleepwear, and what our pie charts are revealing here is the top selling categories are slippers, pajama bottoms, and obviously high demand because of the Zoom dressing from the waist up. Prioritizing comfort on the bottom is still, of course, very much relevant. We mentioned we're coming up to the gifting season, so there's been a spike in pajama set sellouts, and again, tying in with the normalization of self-care and wellness. For women's wear, sleepwear sales are driven by pajama sets, bottoms, and slippers. What's interesting to note is sellouts of the traditional nighties have been challenged as the nap or the house dress trend has continued to grow. Consumers are really looking for products that isn't strictly for sleep, but can also be worn to go out or to work in, you know, something that isn't distinguishable as pajamas when you're on a Zoom call. For men's and women's wear, bathrooms over the past 3 months are making up a lower percentage of sellouts versus what is in stock. You know, I think this is an item consumers would have purchased during the first lockdown and isn't something people traditionally own more of than one, unless you're an avid bathrobe collector. So it makes it important for retailers here to be investing in high quality fabrications that can warrant a higher price point and create a higher average spend per item. Similar to loungewear, I think we're going to start to see sleepwear become more elevated with more people at home. I mentioned the nap dress before, which is trademarked by a brand called Hill House Home. This has become a viral success, propelled by the pandemic, of course, because it provides this fashionable alternative to loungewear and pajamas. Because we're all more restricted to our homes, we're really starting to see day and night wear become blurred. Is there really a difference between what your consumers are wearing to bed versus what they're wearing, to work or on a Zoom call at midday? Additionally, we've seen this resurgence of comfort footwear brands. UGG, for example, have done some recent collaborations, and have kind of gotten an it factor again. And then Crocs, again, have recently partnered with Justin Bieber's streetwear brand, and they're starting to have a moment with the Gen Z consumer. Also, obviously, it's a huge time for anxiety and uncertainty. So this particular category is one where you can make consumers feel good as well as look good, and they will really be responding well to products that kind of exude a sense of warmth and happiness and safety. So taking into account this importance of sleep and self-care, luxury fabrics should be at the forefront of new season buys. So think like silks, cashmeres, or blends, something that can really amp up, the feel-good factor. And going off the previous slide, there's just so much opportunity for footwear within this area. Slippers have become a hero category within footwear, because if you're not in sneakers, you're in slippers. And this is a trend that's going to continue. We just saw on the recent Spring Summer 21 runway, brands like Balenciaga and Gabriela Hearst were backing fuzzy slippers. Kim Kardashian's Skims just dropped a collection. Molly Goddard did a collaboration with UGG, giving the brand even further credibility. So we're really going to start to see slippers shift away from just being associated with nightwear, and become part of this homeware wardrobe that retailers are really pushing right now. Finally, licensing is a huge opportunity within this area. Obviously, fashion has this continued obsession with nostalgia. So this is really the perfect category to reacquaint your consumer with, retro cartoons or Disney characters, and combined with this demand for family pajamas, there's opportunity to incorporate mini-me dressing, which is an ideal way to promote an upsell there.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting you say that, Kayla, because so many retailers now are using Edited to optimize their licensing assortment. It's like taken the world by storm, I feel, during the pandemic. And actually, just looking at the UK women's sleepwear market, Edited Insights can show us that what you're talking about with nostalgia is really a prominent theme. So the top performing products are really those nostalgic Disney references, and those Uniqlo have just partnered or collabed with the Peanut range, and that's been selling really well. So yeah, it's a really great way to sort of understand what's next for licensing by using our Edited tool.
Yeah, for sure. And Peanuts and Snoopy is absolutely everywhere at the moment. It's so cute. So we have just blitzed through 4 categories that have defined pandemic dressing and will continue to influence retailers' assortments going forward. So with so much comfort prioritized, I think now's a really good time to start talking about the current state of denim. Again, here in this chart, we're using Edited's history tool to analyze how denim has fared recently. And what we can see again is similar to suiting, after Feb, there is this decline, which then remained low for some time, with retailers not wanting to bring in new styles during the peak of a lockdown. However, this style has actually, this category has actually started to gain some traction here, yet it is still down. New arrivals for denim over the past 3 months is down 11% year on year. So, Carrington, we work with so many denim brands, as well as buying and merch teams specializing in this particular category. I think it'd be great to hear some of the challenges they face and how they're mitigating the situation now that denim is coming second to fleece.
Yeah, well, I think very much kind of how we were talking about with workwear and occasion wear, it's been a big refocus on the types of fabrics that retailers can use when creating their denim assortments. So I think more of a focus on like stretchy fabrics, less selvage denim, more that's kind of focused on what people will be doing now, which is, wearing their jeans more likely around the house or to run errands. So really focused on comfort, and less of that like true selvage feel that might have been kind of creeping up in the past.
I think as well, retailers are really using edited to optimize their jeans and denim assortment. So they really want to ensure to give their customers a point of difference or a reason to buy their denim, because obviously you need to appear different in this market, especially when the category is struggling as it is. So a key trend, picking out key trends such as paper bag jeans, or just making sure you're first to market with new innovation is really important, and more important than it ever has been. Retailers also seem to be using edited to mitigate the risk by using edited to spot white space opportunities and category expansion opportunities within different product areas, to offset where denim may be struggling as well. So that was also a really interesting thing to witness through what we've seen from our retailers.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, guys. So I think something that we've all been kind of wondering, how do jeans stack up against sweatpants? We have, Carrington, you brought up the great point about sweatpant fatigue. However, our data currently shows that this cozier alternative is still outranking denim. So over the past 3 months, sweatpant sellouts continue to surge. It's up 81% year on year versus jeans, where sellouts are up 30% versus last year. We're also seeing, as we enter one of the most aggressive sales periods, that jeans have a higher discount attached to them in order to move through units. 48% of jeans online in the US and UK are advertised as on sale, with an average reduction of 40%, compared to sweatpants, where 39% of products are currently on sale, and the average advertised discount comes in lower at 31%. However, we did mention that jean sellouts are up. So let's take a look at what is actually selling at the moment. So starting with menswear, using edited data, we confirmed over the past 3 months, jeans described with stretch qualities have seen a 23% increase in sellouts compared to a year ago. Relaxed fits are also up 15%, and the straight leg jean is up 13%. So unsurprisingly, and as you pointed out, Carrington, it's more these relaxed silhouettes that you can wear around the house that are seeing growth and are really resonating with consumers right now. And then for women's wear, stretch jean sellout surged by 77% year on year. The wide leg is up 97%, the straight leg 69%, and then jeans described with the paper bag waist, which Bethany, you pointed out as a important trend right now, saw 24% growth in terms of sellouts. So, it's no surprise that these jeans are working well right now, given the current situation, these more relaxed and accommodating fits, and again, tying into, comfort dressing being so important right now. So now we're going to take a look at what this has all meant for the skinny jean. So it's a really tough call to say, are skinny jeans over? They're certainly putting up a really good fight. And the reason they have been so successful for so long is that they are embedded as a staple within retailers' assortments. For women, we've seen sellouts increase 30%, which pales in comparison to the wide leg at 97%, which we noted on the previous slide. And then for menswear, sellouts are actually down 14% year on year. What is even more interesting is using edited, we discovered that 56% of skinny jeans selling out over this time period with stretch denim styles, highlighting again this ever-growing need for comfort. So, in my opinion, I don't think the skinny jean is quite over, but to keep it alive, it certainly needs to fit in with the new and the next normal and really be accommodating to, these new lifestyle shifts. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on the skinny jeans future?
Oh, I think it's a really tough one because it's such an outfitting piece, and I think it will be in people's wardrobes for years to come. But it is interesting to see how the shift of investment into this silhouette has changed and will change over time. And again, this is where edited can really come into its own. So retailers can use the tool to understand how competitors are planning their ranges to inform their own future strategies. So our retailers may be buying tighter, so their replenishments are lower and their sellouts are higher to mitigate risk and increase profitability. Or is there a consideration that maybe you could take in terms of offering less option breadth within your assortment on skinny jeans? So focusing only on 3 colorways, or not adding too many up-spec'd items, keeping it the real core basic essential. So all of these things edited can really help you understand further.
Yeah, and to that point, I think the answers to those questions are going to be different for each retailer depending on their market base. I think for more classic retailers, it's going to be better for them to stick to massive quantities of their core products because their customer probably knows what they want. While other retailers may be able to kind of play around with silhouettes because their customers want to try different things. So, I think edited can be really crucial in deciding which of those strategies can be best for you.
Yeah, for sure. Moving into what is next for denim, I think a great place to start again is really with size inclusivity. Something of course applies to all categories, as I mentioned before, but denim, it's so crucial because it's such a fit focused category. A really great recent example is Frame's Le One jean, and it advertises the ability to fit 6 sizes in one, really allowing adaptation to changing bodies and promoting sustainability because it means you don't have to throw out your jeans if you go up or down a few sizes. We're also seeing denim brands, similar to Activewear, really pioneer innovation in materials, not only in terms of sustainability, but also antibacterial fabrics. And as the stats that we just covered on previous slides show, comfort remains a high priority. So stretch fabrications, elastic waist, soft touch, washes really will remain a core trend for the denim market in seasons to come. And also, outside of jeans, retailers should be looking at ways that they can also add in comfort fabrics, whether that's, within the lining with like a fleece or Sherpa-like material, giving products a really quick win to keep today's comfort-orientated consumer invested.
Yeah, I love the idea of these size inclusive jeans. They sound amazing. But just to touch on the antibacterial fabrics, it was actually really interesting to see companies like Diesel were really quick on communicating about their antimicrobial jeans to consumers on newsletters during the peak of the pandemic. So they were really hot on making sure that their customers knew that this was within their fabrication. And they're also now partnering with companies to create virus fighting denim, which is really setting a new precedent for technological advancements within consumer wardrobes.
Yeah, and I think to kind of expand further on that sustainability point too, I think one thing we've kind of seen consistently is that denim is one of the most polluting fabrics, and that it takes a huge amount of resources to make just a single pair of jeans. So, I think we'll see brands, either creating new technologies and calling out, the amount of water that it takes maybe to make their jeans, or maybe even offering more secondhand or vintage jean assortments within their overall product offering.
Yeah, and I remember Levi's recently launched their buyback initiative where you can trade in your old jeans for a gift card. And then these returned items can then be resold. So, and I think we touch on later, like just how important circular fashion is going to be going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Then trends to invest in. So no surprise, roomy, relaxed, wide leg fits. These are, of course, firmly incorporated with women's wear, as we've seen, but we're going to start to see them have a bit more of a presence in the menswear market, as of course, we've seen the data now to show that interest in skinny jeans are declining for men. A directional trend pioneered by Victoria Beckham and adopted by influencers across social media is this split hem jean in the top left. And that has just exploded since Fashion Week and really lends itself to the Y2K aesthetic that has been so popular. Denim is a really great way to convey different eras within your assortment, and it's a great way to lead into these more nostalgic trends. Outside of the 90s and the noughties, patchwork denim, reminiscent of the 1970s, an acid wash from the 80s, cropped up on the recent runway alongside, Western influences. Also, the Bermuda short made an appearance again, and solidifying its importance for future seasons, showing that luxury designers are backing this particular item. So now we're going to take a look at some of the micro and emerging trends that challenge the overall comfort aesthetic, highlighting key call-outs on how these can be peppered into your assortments to create a sense of excitement for your consumer up against your core categories. So one particular trend of interest is this survivalist aesthetic. It's a look very present with the Gen Z consumer and speaks to the current situation. I think we all kind of feel like we're surviving some sort of apocalypse, and it reinforces utility and streetwear, but more for the post-pandemic dystopia. Key defining products, as you can see here, are combat boots, functional details, windbreakers, deconstructed looks, more of a grungy, dark color palettes with industrial grays, khakis, and camo print. So these are great ways to introduce the theme into your best-selling items, through color, and incorporating that into your comfort ranges, such as loungewear, just to test the water on how your consumer reacts to maybe a shift in the mood to something a bit more somber. And now, following such a challenging year, I think you can almost feel this build up towards a huge celebration, the party to end all parties when this pandemic is finally contained and events can return to somewhat normal. So when this does happen, I think what we can expect to see is bold hues, really over the top styles start to return to the surface, reflecting the current state of joy and optimism that surely will be. Because, it's interesting to note similarities between fashion now compared to like the 2008 GFC. There has, it's kind of mirrored that return to minimalism and less is more. However, on the recent runways for spring summer 21, there was also this explosion of color and drama that kind of states maximalism isn't dead yet and will still have a place in future assortments. So we can see retailers will be taking cues of this kind of aesthetic within their party ranges, looking to sequins, neons, bold hues, clashing prints, silk shirts, really lots of chills and textures and fun. Sexy dressing, really a true antidote to loungewear and another trend that featured prominently on the runway. It was really a much needed palette cleanser against the amount of sweatpants that we saw. A lot of these trends kind of clash with the comfort aesthetic, like leathers and corsets. They do obviously present a risk, but then there are ways that you can pick and choose what works for your particular range and incorporate that into your buys there. Animal print, for example, is a risk-free, very popular trend that can easily be added into upcoming ranges. There's been a lot of interest surrounding cutout and open back dresses and tops. For the more daring retailer, there is the visible thong or fashion flossing trend that has recently, made headlines on celebrities like Beyonce on her British Vogue cover and Kim Kardashian in her Givenchy dress. And it's something we've also seen retailers kind of mimic, but with their loungewear assortments, which is really interesting. So merchandising sweatpants with a visible thong and kind of paying an homage to that early mid-noughties trend. I feel like it's, the complete other side of the coin now, talking more modesty. Cottagecore has been obviously a subculture that we've discussed a lot in previous webinars and within our reports. It really kind of rose to prominence during the lockdown. It's now evolved where we can see it going forward next is through this vintage femme aesthetic. Becoming more inclusive of all genders and really challenging traditional masculinity with soft hues and delicate fabrics. Through this trend, we can see the house dress live on and also see other interpretations like the house skirt. This is a great trend for inspiration for details and fabrications to give products a more dressy, more pretty update. At the beginning of the presentation, we were talking a lot about those exaggerated collars and embellished buttons for hoodies and for, cardigans and sweatshirts and so on. And finally, we have, mentioned hygiene tech over the past couple of slides. Even if there isn't a formula that can keep COVID at bay, safety will remain a top priority and PPE will become further integrated into assortments as especially as spaces start to open up, children and teens return to in-person learning. Also, with the outbreak of coronavirus starting from a live trade market, consumers will really further question their consumption and purchase of animal products, creating additional demand for vegan alternatives. It's of course important to note that just because a material is vegan, it doesn't make it sustainable. However, there is a lot of talk around, alternatives that are going to, offer a material that does tick both of those boxes. A great example is Milo, a mushroom leather that's made from less water and greenhouse emissions, that has been adopted by Stella McCartney. It's recently seen investment in by Lululemon and Adidas. So we're starting to see these fabrics become more accessible to the masses and start to become a bit more commonplace. In a similar vein, and kind of tying in with what we talked about with denim and the importance of the second-hand market and circularity, there's a huge highlight on these kind of processes. They've been dubbed the holy grail of sustainability. And recently we've seen it's been reported the H&M Foundation has introduced what they're calling their green machine, which is refining circular fashion by having the ability to separate mixed fibers using heat, water, and biodegradable chemicals to then spin into new materials. The goal is then to make this machine commercially viable and scale capacity by the end of 2021. So at the moment, they're testing this new process with a small loungewear drop at Monkey. So yeah, a lot to cover, and I'm sure that there's so more. I mean, do you guys have anything else to add in terms of new material trends to look out for?
Yeah, just I guess touching on the comfort fabric element. Obviously, we've been speaking a lot about comfort and casualization during this webinar. So Pima and Supima cotton has seen a real increase in investment across a lot of retailers' assortments. So we saw an increase in new ins of about plus 30% in the United Kingdom in October this year versus last year. And we also saw an increase again across the UK of 43% in mentions of cross homepages and newsletters as well. So you can see that not only are brands investing in it, but they're also making sure that their customers know that they are stocking that product, which again shows it as a key trending fabric going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I guess it's time to wrap up now. During these unprecedented times of the pandemic, it has never been more important to have market data and insights at your fingertips, allowing you to pivot and react quickly to the ever-changing retail environment that we find ourselves in right now. So this is where leveraging Edited's real-time data is so important. It allows retailers to understand how to mitigate risk, expand into and take advantage of white space opportunities, and also helps inform those future strategies, aligning to your business objectives. So thank you all so much for listening. If you have any questions at all, please send us an email at hello@edited.com. And other than that, stay safe and eat well.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.